Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into, honestly, one of the most fascinating historical mysteries out there, the true story of how Europeans actually first came to the Americas. We're going to look past the common myths we've all heard, dig into the real timeline, and reveal how this massive shift in global history wasn't just a single light bulb moment. It was a complex, super competitive process that played out over hundreds of years. I am so excited to guide you through this journey today. Okay, let's dive right into this. So think about the number 300 million. That's roughly how many people live in the United States alone today, right? It's a bustling, incredibly populated place. But try to imagine a time when that number, at least in terms of European presence, was literally zero. Nothing. There was an era when no European had ever even laid eyes on this land. It was completely unknown to them. So how on earth did we get from zero to the massive populations we see today? How did they first cross that huge ocean? And why did they just keep coming wave after wave? And that brings us to our core question, doesn't it? Who was the very first to arrive? For the longest time, the mainstream story has usually been boiled down to this one simple, all-at-once discovery. But historians and archaeologists, they tell a totally different story. It wasn't just a sudden, single event by one famous explorer. It's actually this fast-paced mystery filled with rivalries, shifting goals, and secret arrivals that remained hidden from the rest of the world for centuries. To find out who really got here first, we have to rewind the clock way further back than you might think.
Section 1. First Contact. The Norse Arrival.
All right, here's our first major historical twist. Long before those famous voyages in the 1400s, another group of intrepid sailors had already managed to cross the super treacherous Atlantic Ocean. We're talking about the Norse explorers. You know, the Vikings. Right around the year 1000 AD, a guy named Leif Erikson led this incredibly daring voyage all the way from Greenland. He and his crew ended up landing on the rocky coast of what is now Canada, in a spot they dubbed Vinland. And guys, this isn't just a legend. We literally have the archaeological evidence in modern-day Newfoundland proving a small North settlement absolutely existed there. But here's the catch. They didn't stick around. The settlement was just temporary, and crazy enough, their groundbreaking journey remained largely unknown to the rest of Europe for centuries. So they were the first, but their arrival didn't change the world at large. Section 2. Spain opens the door. The 1492 voyage. And this brilliantly illustrates the difference. To find the arrival that actually permanently shifted global history, we have to fast forward almost exactly 500 years to Christopher Columbus. But wait, here is where that common myth totally unravels. Columbus didn't discover America. Actually, he never even set foot in North America. His real goal? He was just trying to reach Asia. Instead, in 1492, he ended up in the Bahamas, where he encountered the indigenous Taino people. So, while he definitely wasn't the first European to cross the Atlantic, this specific voyage was the game changer. It had permanent world-altering consequences because the story spread like wildfire. It forcefully opened the door to regular, continuous contact between Europe and the Americas, completely changing the narrative once the true scale of the landmass was realized. The isolation was officially over. Because that door was finally open, Spain jumped right in. They became the first European country to send over large numbers of explorers and settlers, capitalizing on this new connection immediately. By 1565, Spanish explorers had established St. Augustine down in present-day Florida. And according to the National Park Service, that right there stands as the very first permanent European settlement in what is now the United States. But you've got to wonder, why were they pushing so incredibly hard through the sweltering landscapes of Florida, the Southwest, and Mexico over the following decades? Well, the historical record points to three main motivations. First off, gold. They were on a relentless search for valuable resources to enrich the Spanish crown. Second, land. They wanted to rapidly expand their territorial claims before anyone else could get their hands on them. And third, religion. They had a deeply rooted mission to spread Christianity to these new lands. Those three pillars basically drove the entire Spanish expedition machine. Section 3. The European Scramble. Rivals rush in. Now, what's really interesting about this is how the map gets carved up. I mean, you just can't keep an entire hemisphere a secret for long, right? As word of the Americas, and especially the wealth Spain was extracting, spread across Europe, it triggered a massive domino effect. Other powerful nations rushed in, but they targeted completely different locations for completely different strategic reasons. France sent explorers way up north into Canada and the Great Lakes, laser-focused on the lucrative fur trade. The Dutch, the Netherlands, they sailed in and established strategic trading posts right in the area that is New York today. And meanwhile, England, they targeted the broader Atlantic coast, driven by a dual desire for raw resources and, for some of their people, a search for freedom.
Which brings us to Section 4, Taking Root, the English colonies.
Let's zoom in a bit on England's expeditions from the late 1500s and early 1600s. While France and the Netherlands were mostly focused on trade, England started laying the actual groundwork for permanent, growing colonies along the eastern coast. But, let me tell you, taking root in an unfamiliar environment was anything but easy. In 1607, English settlers established Jamestown in present-day Virginia. And those early years, absolutely brutal. Historical accounts detail horrific struggles with rampant disease, severe food shortages, and intense conflicts. It was a massive test of endurance. Yet, despite all of those catastrophic challenges, Jamestown somehow managed to survive. It claimed its place in history as the first permanent English settlement in North America.
Then, just over a decade later, in 1620, a totally separate group of English settlers showed up on a ship called the Mayflower. We know them today as the Pilgrims, and they established Plymouth Colony up in present-day Massachusetts. Now, unlike the resource-driven founders of Jamestown, historians note that the Pilgrims were primarily seeking religious freedom. Their distinct arrival and the fact that they survived those early years is what's heavily connected in historical tradition to the origins of the modern Thanksgiving holiday. Let's move to Section 5, A Changed Continent, the Domino Effect.
When we take a step back and look at the whole timeline, it is so clear that European colonization wasn't just some overnight singular event. It was a steady, relentless expansion along the eastern coast and beyond, growing decade by decade. This perfectly proves our initial point. Unraveling this grand mystery shows us it took hundreds of years to unfold. We start with that initial, temporary Norse footprint way back in 1000 AD. Then we have a massive gap of nearly 500 years before Columbus reaches the Caribbean in 1492. After that, the pace totally accelerates. Spain plants their flag in St. Augustine in 1565, England follows with Jamestown in 1607, and the Pilgrims land at Plymouth in 1620.
So the crucial point is this. There was absolutely no single reason for this massive migration. These diverse, highly competitive groups were driven by a really complex mix of motivations. Whether it was the Spanish hunting for gold, the French chasing the fur trade, or the English searching for land and religious freedom, these overlapping goals fueled a relentless wave of settlers. And that wave would forever alter the trajectory of global history.
But that brings us to an incredibly important final thought to leave you with. All of these European nations were scrambling to claim pieces of a new world. But of course, it wasn't new at all, was it? This massive European arrival completely upended the future of an entire continent. A continent that was already home to millions of indigenous people with their own deep histories, complex cultures, and established societies. So what exactly happens when these two completely different worlds collide permanently? Well, that is the dramatic reality we're going to be exploring in our next explainer. Thanks so much for joining me as we unraveled the Great Arrival mystery today.